Everyone, how are you? We're getting ready for another edition of Evolving Education webinars. Today we're going to be with Tania Moloney from Australia, all the way from Australia. We have been mixing up with the time zones, particularly now that there's been the summer change. Oh, here he is, Tania. Let me see if I can join you to the... invite you to join. There we go. Getting this ready.
Hey,
Tania,
hi David, how are you?
good. This is like the smoothest connection that we have had ever. It has taken us less than a minute. Usually I'm here for 15 minutes trying to figure out what to say.
That's all right. No, I've been waiting, but yeah, no, the time change is always tricky. So thank you for not making me get up at like 5 a.m.
Thank you for the flexibility. So let me maybe make a little introduction about what are we doing here today. I'm David. I'm one of the co-founders of Evolving Education, and what we do is to research and democratize how some of the most progressive learning spaces around the planet are transforming education. And to do that, we do a variety of things, and among those things is holding conversations with people that are part of the transformation of education, and we do that through Instagram Live events that we call Evolving Education webinars. If you want to know more about our research, in our bio you can find our ebook, Questioning Education, where you can find lots of questions about that make you question why we do the things that we do in the schools and how things could be differently. But anyways, today we're glad to have here Tania from Nurturing Nature. I'm really keen to know about your journey in education and what was the call that brought you to connect these two passions of nature and education, which I completely share as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful space to play in, and you know, I'm so blessed every day to do that. Before I begin, David, I'd really love to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I am joining you from. I'm on Kiriwaram country, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And, you know, their care and custodianship of the land is really where, you know, what a gift to us today, and to be able to enjoy that nature and beautiful earth. So I moved probably about 10 years ago. 12 years ago now, I moved from the city. I had grown up in the country on a dairy farm. I was a dairy farmer's kid, and I lived in the city for 20 years, and then, you know, saw the light and moved back to, you know, with a bit more space and things like that. And at the time, my children were very young, and I ran an organisation which was all about corporate health and well-being. And so I knew what well-being felt like, and when I moved back to the country, I kind of, being more immersed in nature, really felt that and saw that in my children, that they were growing and thriving like so beautifully in the outdoors. And, you know, even now, you know, I think it's a challenge as your kids get older. In education and in as a parent, you know, there's that draw of technology and things like that, and as an educator as well. But yeah, so really kind of coming back to that, and I wasn't passionate about what I was doing anymore, and I had done, you know, I'd worked with kids before at summer camps in the US and different places, and everything kind of just came together, like education and nature. And I started working actually with families because I'm not a qualified teacher, although I'd done lots of nature pedagogy training, and you know, I'd worked with kids, and I was a kid who played in nature, so I had that experience and that sort of lived experience. You know, I'm not a qualified teacher, and so working with families, that's what I loved. But it sort of, I mean, to be honest, it wasn't it wasn't paying the bills like to keep me living my passion. And so I was chatting to I'd started working with teachers and doing some professional development stuff and doing some training, and I just loved it because I could reach far more people through working with teachers than I could on my own. And I was chatting to a teacher one day, and she said to me, I said to her, I just don't know, Kathy, how I can teach teachers to teach nature. And she said, that's not your job. She said, your job is to inspire us and empower us and get us really excited about taking our learning outdoors. And when we do that, everyone feels better. And so that's my job, is really to inspire and empower and build community and support teachers in any way I can by building that community as well. I know we're going to talk about community a bit later, but really, I guess when you look at, what's a really such a powerful nature is such a powerful teacher. Like, you look outside and you see science and maths and literacy and arts and culture and just the richness of the natural world. As soon as you open the door, there's learning right in front of you. And so for teachers, that's not only great for news for kids, and it's not only really impactful for kids, but for teachers, like opening the door. There's such your curriculum's sort of in front of you, and letting children lead the way often leads to the best and the most richest learning experiences. So, and there are no walls to climb outside, as they say. So, the kids are less likely to climb the walls when they're outside.
Awesome! Wow, so many different connections and points where that resonated with me. I think one of them, when you mentioned teachers, I absolutely agree that for me it's kind of the most transcendental role in society, because really educators have such a tremendous impact on full-on generations, and there's like hundreds or even thousands of kids that goes through one person's class or one person's teaching. So I think working is a super amazing way to social entrepreneurship and to work for to make this world a better place. I also love that what you mentioned about coming from a different background that wasn't necessarily education, because I think when we look at complex things like education it is, or like how to build a sustainable society, we need a diversity of skills and viewpoints to be able to move forward. And if we all come from exactly the same the position, it's going to be very hard to develop the kind of solutions that integrate those different viewpoints and make it possible to happen.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. And sometimes I think that not being a qualified teacher is is a drawback. But ultimately, the skills that I have and really help me, help teachers in many different ways. And sometimes I don't feel so confined by those curriculum boxes. And all the paperwork that got it. Obviously, I've got paperwork as well, but all that sort of really in classroom stuff. In the mainstream education is I kind of have a bit more freedom to make those choices, and hopefully that helps the teachers that I work with.
Yeah, and part of that freedom, I think, as well, you mentioned it, it's a kind of allowing learning to flow outside of the walls of the school. If we start thinking, or as children, we start thinking that the only learning happens when we are sitting down for 6 hours in a chair, then that's really limiting. There's a lot of learning that happens in other parts of our lives, and that can be very enjoyable in many different ways. No? And one of them is connecting with nature and playing in nature. And that's something I would love to know more about, because I know you organize also activities with families, with kids, as you mentioned. And it's always fun to share with people one of those activities, one tip, something that worked out for you super well to share with children so that they learn in nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Could I share two? Is that okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
One is sort of more kind of, a team sort of, there's lots of kids involved maybe. And then the other one is a really personal individual one. So the first activity, I guess, really, or it's a pretty immersive experience, is cubby building. Now, you might call it fort building or den building, or depending on where you are, just getting out in nature, grabbing some sticks and leaves and things like that, and building a hut. When you do that, you can do that on your own. That's unbelievable. But when kids do that, they're problem solving, they're communicating, they're learning to get along or not get along. That sort of relationship kind of management. They're learning resilience, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you will often see with kids when they have this opportunity to just kind of go wild and build these little communities. That community is really what forms from that, and that is such a rich learning experience in so many ways, and it doesn't always go well. You know, sometimes that you know, one village will destroy the other, or you know, but that's a way that kids can really, you know, express their emotions and understand, you know, that dynamics of communication between people as well, and empathy and all that sort of stuff as well. So that I guess is really one, you know, just awesome activity that always is unbelievable when you do it. And I've seen that in schools where that goes for months and months and months. Like, if the kids are allowed to have that wild space and be able to take ownership and feel connection to place, then it's just such an incredible, like, and I know when we did that as kids, if we were to build cubbies and tree houses and all that sort of stuff, it was just so awesome. So were you a cubby builder or a fort builder when you were young, David?
Yeah. When you mentioned it, it brought to my mind that memory of when I was, I don't know if 10 or 12. I think it was a moment when there was almost like a feeling that everyone was building a hut in like all my groups of friends or friends of friends, and people ended up doing things super elaborated, like with sofas inside and things that represented where the TV was, and like all sorts of things, all made of wood and sticks and things like that. That was fun. Still, when I go back to my village where I was raised, I still go running towards the place where we built that hut to see how it looks like.
Absolutely.
If the hut is not there anymore, but the beautiful view of the landfill, it's still nice.
Yeah, lovely. And you feel a connection, a special connection to that place and the people that were there with you. So, so that is one, you know, really, that's you know, just get outside and build a hut, even as an adult. Like, it feels really good. And if you can build some, you know, that's where I take it to the next level, is like, build some furniture. Or, okay, you've got your hut now. Is it waterproof? You know, if it rained, would you be... So, you know, then they really, you know, will think about how to maybe you know, make that sort of more stronger in the weather as well. And then the other activity that I love, and I learned this from a wonderful educator friend of mine who's a principal at a primary school, Jo Pegg, and she does a practice every morning with her primary school students called deep listening. And every morning they deep listen, and they sit, whether they're outdoors or they're indoors. Mostly they try and do it outdoors. They just sit and let nature kind of be their guide almost, and just wait till the trick is, and it's not always that easy. The trick is to wait until your mind goes blank, until you notice that your mind goes blank and quiet. And sometimes that takes a long time, particularly for us as adults, I think. And then see what kind of starts to come through. And that deep listening to your own thoughts, to the nature around you, can really, again, connect you with place, but also connect you with, in just such a deep way, to your own being in those spaces. So it's just it's a beautiful practice, and she does it every morning without fail. And so after they deep listen, they write. And so these children are then writing about their experience deep listening for that particular morning. And it's just, she said, just over time, it's just like such an incredible experience.
Yeah, and it's something super deep that we can all enjoy, and as well to be aware of, particularly when you're in a natural place, all the sounds that are around you. That's something I notice. Like right now, I live in the middle of the countryside, as you might figure out for the background I've got here. And there's never absolute silence. There's always there's the wind and the leaves, or there are lots of crickets in the night. And it's always surprising to me when I go to a city, how in the night I can get absolute silence. With windows closed and everything, when you don't hear the traffic, and it's so awkward. It's like if I cannot sleep now and rest anymore in absolute silence, because it's not natural. That like in the real world, there's always something that you can hear. If not, it's because everything is dead. It's because we have covered absolutely everything with concrete, and there's no space for anything alive. I like that of the listening and the reflection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really
and
mindful.
you can take, you know, I find that sound, like often we forget that sound and smell are really vibrant senses, and they bring back all these memories and feelings and things like that. And I notice with sound as well, like I can without knowing that it's summer or winter or autumn or spring or whatever whatever the season is, I can tell what time of year it is by the sound of the birds outside. And so I know that at a particular time of particular time of year, there's a bird at 5 a.m. every morning that doesn't sound very nice. It's a squawky bird. And I know that it wakes me up and I think, okay, it's that time of year. That bird is around. Or at the moment, there's like little twitty birds. They're just tweet, 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 tweet. And I know they're talking to each other and they're having they're laying their eggs. So it's quite, it's just listening to the natural sounds around you. And even if you're in the city, like a friend of mine he went to a city sort of to care for his mother during COVID, like our COVID lockdowns. And he said he was walking around the city and he noticed all the birds. And he would never notice the birds because they were almost drowned out in all the traffic and things like that. But walking around when everyone's in lockdown, there's no traffic, like he said, he noticed the birds were there. And the question, the inquiry was, and we could talk about that with children as well, was, are they always there or did they come back because we weren't there? Are they always around? And so that sort of natural inquiry or that curiosity is really key, I guess, to children, being able to notice the things that are around them.
Absolutely. And I was thinking back to the a couple of skills or values or mindset that are really present in these two examples. One of them is that inquiring, just asking questions from the things that are around without being afraid of asking the wrong question or not being right or whatever. And then also the experience of building the hat about making mistakes, because I remember when I was a kid building the hat, I wasn't thinking at any point that, I'm not doing it because I don't know how to build a hat or because I've never done it. I just went on and did it. But now recently, when I now try to build something, I always, like, the usual thought, it's let's see who can make it for us. Let's see where we can buy it. But it's really rare, that thought of I'm going to build it by myself. It's like, no, this is a whole enterprise. I need people and tools and stuff. I'm going to show you, I don't know how beautiful it's going to look, but this is something that Luz has built. This is the project of a sofa we're building here.
It looks very comfortable.
Hopefully with some cushions it will be better, but that's one of those things that the beginning I was scared of. It's not going to be comfortable. It's going to be a mess. I mean, it's not perfect, of course, but we can build things with our hands when we are not afraid of making mistakes or with the need to make things perfect.
Yeah, you don't always have to have a plan, and I think with the outlook there, that the view that chair that chair will give you, and the enjoyment as well, is really, it doesn't matter if it's a little bit lumpy or bumpy or whatever. It's just it's the experience of making it together. Yeah.
Absolutely. And like when people come home, I don't show them the table because I bought the table, but I do show them nothing. It's like, look at this. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And kids are so proud. Like, they're so proud to show you the things that they created. And quite often, like, if I'm working with kids and we're doing a session with maybe loose parts or, natural loose parts like sticks and rocks and feathers and things like that, and I'll ask them to make a story. Make a story or a picture in front of you with that, and they will make, the most elaborate things with just sticks and rocks. And they're not just sticks and rocks because they have a purpose, and they have they take on a whole personality of their own. And sometimes I might look at it as an adult and I never say, oh, I can see this, or I can see that, or I can see the car or the dinosaur or whatever it particularly is. Because it might not be a car or a dinosaur. To me, in my adult head, it might be that. But it could be some elaborate story that, that plays out in the child's mind. That me not giving them a chance to explain that in their own words is lost. So just sometimes standing back as an adult and just letting them. Tell you about it. Tell me about that. What's happening here? Opening those open questions are really important.
Absolutely. And when we talk about nature and education, there are so many ways in which arguing why it makes all the sense. We can talk about the well-being of the children, because there's a lot of research that children that they spend more time in nature ends up being more balanced, more in control of their emotions and things like this. We can talk about the skill building, like we were talking about problem solving and cooperation with other kids, or mindfulness. Um, uh, and also, and one thing I think that I would like to go a bit deeper into is also about social and environmental impact. Even if we don't just focus on the children per se, but the society that we want to build. When we grow up surrounded by nature and appreciating nature as something valuable in itself, not just a resource for something, but something that in itself it's already beautiful. It develops a different kind of mindset that I think we need to develop more in nowadays world, given the ecological challenges that we're facing and the fact that we keep being a lot of human beings on this planet and need to find a different way of living. That doesn't mean that each of us consumes every time more, and that the kind of the development path of countries that we consider developed is pretty much consuming 1,000 times more than the countries that we consider not developed. So everyone needs to move in that direction. And I think your book, Nature Ninja Saves the Natural World, wants to inspire that, wants to inspire children to think about how we can save the natural world. So I would love to hear more about your book.
Yeah, excellent. Oh, well, I'm very excited because it launches officially on Tuesday, and I'll tell you a bit more about that before. I hope this is probably backwards, I imagine, with everyone looking here. But this is the cover. It's not the real book, but it's the cover. And that'll come very soon, hopefully, if we get the Kickstarter funded. But yeah, it's a gorgeous little book. Like, I know all the kids that I work with, like, they love ninjas, and I'm trying to help them connect with nature and know that they can make a difference in their own environments. Like kids. So the story essentially is about three friends: Nature Ninja, a wise owl, and a stick, because everyone needs a good stick for a friend. And they are off on a mission to save the natural world. The only problem is they're not allowed out of the backyard because they're too little on their own. So they start to wonder about how they can make a difference for the planet and protect the planet when, in their own environment. And so I really wrote this book about to help children understand that the little things that they do to care for nature in their own backyards or balconies or classrooms or neighbourhoods really make a difference. Because when we all do that and we all care for nature in our own way, where we are with what we have, then together our collective action changes the world. And and for children as well, I think it's really important for them to know that there are other people in the world who are actually caring for the planet as well. And so whilst you might not be out combating the deforestation in the Amazon, which means nothing to a child who lives in where I am, it just causes them stress when they see it. But if they can create a little garden at their school, like a pollinator garden, and attract blue-banded bees and things like that are in our local environment, then they're actually making a difference for the planet. And when we there's a lot, as you said before, there's a lot of research into the benefits of nature, play and outdoor learning, but there are a lot of great research resources now. Louise Chawla in the US has been researching this for years, and many others, about how the impact that nature play and immersion in nature as a child has on environmental stewardship as we grow. And so, if we don't have a connection, like you said before, if we don't have a connection to nature, and we don't fall in love with nature from an early age, then we have no real compulsion to want to protect it growing up. And we don't feel like we're in control of that, particularly as a child. And so hopefully Nature Ninja and the two friends can really show children how to, there's planting seeds and helping the bees and, doing all these really little simple things that can actually help children then think, okay, what can I do in my environment? Like, I might not have blue-banded bees. There's a beautiful blue-banded bee. I don't know if you can see that there. In here, and we have blue-banded bees where I live, but you don't. And so, those questions are going, okay, so what are our native bees? where I live in Mexico, you know, and how do I build habitat for them? What do they need for me to help them thrive? And so, so you know, it's a little tiny book with a great big message and some really cool characters, and have these little, like, this is Nature Ninja. And all the teachers, of course, think that this is, you know, awesome. And so, yeah, so it's really exciting. It's my first kind of children's book, and hopefully, as I said, it goes live on Kickstarter on next Tuesday, and hopefully we can, yeah, get that basically just helps fund the print run so that I can actually, yeah, get it out into the world and reach more kids and teachers and classrooms all over the planet, hopefully. So.
Awesome. No, that sounds fantastic, and I'm sure there's been lots of work to make that happen as well. And when you see the first page and the puppy and everything, and I'm sure lots of thinking about how to build a story that connects with children, so that they can see themselves there in the story as well, and connect with the characters and so on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that's a super core, amazing skill for educators to have, to be able to tell stories. And nature always is an amazing source of stories as well.
Absolutely. I will say, David,
yeah,
I can't take
congratulations.
thank you. I can't take benefit for, you know, making my words look really good in pictures. Elena Sadi, who's my illustrator, is just like, she is incredible. So it's such a beautiful book. It feels like Nature Ninja and friends live in my backyard. And she's from Croatia and she lives in Canada. And so really working with, you know, finding people to surround yourself with who, you know, who kind of get that vision. She sees my vision. She makes it look better, you know, way better than I ever could. And so, yeah, so it's just that beautiful collaboration. And story is so powerful because we are wired as human beings for story.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And one of your other initiatives, Campfire, I think also brings a lot of that storytelling with educators, I imagine, around a fire.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, because there are so many of these parts of your life that are connected with the storytelling, whether, I don't know, if you have any tips or any resources, something that has worked out for you or helped you to put together this book.
Yep. I mean, I'm so lucky, David, to learn from, like, all the other people who are in my community, you know, and if I, you know, I can reach out to people and say, hey, I'm thinking about, you know, running this conference. It's called, like, Camp and Conference, like, and I do a face-to-face one, I do a virtual one as well. And so the face-to-face one is sitting around a campfire, absolutely, and the other one is, you know, is sitting around a virtual campfire, and being able to reach out to storytellers, whether you're telling stories through nature, through art or drama or food, or, you know, inclusive and diverse stories and things like that, or a great book, you know, being able to reach out to them and tap into those, the people who are in the, you know, around us doing these amazing things is awesome. Because I can say, hey, I've got this little thing happening. Can you, you know, would you come? And everyone's really happy to share. And so I've learned all of my storytelling skills, or, you know, I'm trying to hone them, I guess, you know, practice, because it is a practice. But I think one of the best things you can do, you asked about it as sort of a tip, is really take cues from the world around you. And you can, you know, you can listen to the seasons and tap into something that's happening around you and tell a story about that. Like, kids don't really care if it's a crap story. So, like, if you don't tell it and you don't deliver it like, you know, the best storyteller in the whole wide world, then kids usually don't care. They just know that it's a funny story. And sometimes, you know, what I think is fun is really to help children lead the story. It could be a story about a leaf, and where has this leaf gone on this journey? You know, how did this leaf end up here? A leaf that you find behind a creek or under a tree, or what's the story of that leaf? And what has it seen in its lifetime? Or a tree? Or I did an activity many years ago with my kids' school, and it was like meet a tree. And so they went and they paired up and they went to find a tree in the school grounds, and they met this tree, and they kind of, you know, they switched on all their senses to kind of get to know this tree, and then imagined what the tree had seen in its lifetime and the stories, and they all gave their kids tree, and they all gave their tree a name. So I can go to my kids' primary school and say, there's Chester, and there's Honey, and there's Scarlet, and all of these trees that I still remember the names of, because those stories were so so compelling and so real to those children in the moment. So I think taking those taking just cues from the natural world around you, and again, that curiosity and wonder. And one of the other probably my favourite experience to do with children and with adults as well, with teachers, is a session called Clay and Storylines. And it's so simple. It's just some clay, and all the kids basically create sort of a wild creature, and the teachers. So this is a wild kind of, creature, and then there's another one here. And so you can imagine this one has called sort of some sort of a goat. I can't remember what the name of it was. It was a horned goat, something or other. But if these two creatures meet, outside, imagine the adventures they can go on together. And this is a lump of clay, a few flowers, and few little bits and pieces of nature. And so that is the most, that is the best by far storytelling experience that I can share with people, because it just opens their minds and it's fun. And when you can do that together, but when you do it, I usually get 2 or 3 people together. And so they have these 3 creatures who they've created with different stories, and they come together and they have to go on a journey. And it's kind of, and it's a bit hard to explain, but they take the creatures on a storytelling journey, and they have to overcome a problem or a challenge, and then at the end, the only rule really is you can't start your story with once upon a time or end it with the end. It's kind of got to have like this whole sort of maybe there's a hook at the end or something like that, but just that simple experience, some of the stories that come out of that are just mind-blowing, from kids and adults as well.
Oh, that's so cool. I love to see the little creatures that came out of nature, and also the creativity that went into creating them. They're amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And these 2 weren't made by me. These were friends of, this one wasn't. And every time my friend Tamsin, who is an educator as well, like every time she sees this, she's like, oh, there's my creature, and wonder what it's getting up to, and things like that. So, and that is a lump of clay and natural materials.
That's so cool. Yeah. I guess another way I'm thinking that would be also fun is like thinking about personalities of things that we can see in nature, like I don't know, that tree over there, how it will be, and the bird and the mountain and the different things, and now let's create a story out of their interaction.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be fun.
Absolutely. So yeah, really just taking those cues from what's around you, and there's so many like we went to the Otway Ranges, which is a rainforest sort of around, not as like the Amazon rainforest, as our beautiful smaller rainforest, and on the walk, like there's a species of black snail in this rainforest, and it's indigenous to this particular area, and they're carnivorous. So to think about a carnivorous snail, like and they kill their prey by squirting like goo onto the prey. And the kids and I were telling stories about, almost in slow motion, like these slow motion stories of these really slow snails who had like spat out all their gloop to try and catch their dinner. But it took them such a long time to get there. They had to have a nap on the way and all this sort of stuff, because they're slow, they're snails. But having that, it just taking those cues from what's around you is really cool. It's really fun.
And inviting them to be part of the creation of those stories. I think that was also great to hear, that you don't need to create all of the stories yourself. You can also let the kids co-create the story, actually, each of them a little piece. It brought to my mind once we did a fire with friends, and we asked everyone to bring potatoes, and we were going to bake potatoes. But then once we were there, we said, okay, take one of the potatoes and make and here's a few pens, do something with it, create something with it. So everyone made like a little cartoon. And once that was made and we were ready eating, it's like, okay, so we have got all these little minions around
Yes.
here. Let's make a story. And everyone took their potato and told the story of the potato.
Oh, lovely. Oh,
And that was so fun.
excellent. Well, I'm going to steal that idea and use that at my next face-to-face conference because I think that's awesome. We do campfire cooking, so that is great. Thank you.
You're welcome. People ended up connecting the stories, and it's like, oh, this is actually the son of the previous potato, and what happened was, and it built something pretty
Yeah.
magical.
How good. Yeah, amazing. And you got a nice dinner at the end of it. Like, wow, awesome.
Yes, you can put everything on the fire at the end and
Yeah,
have baked potatoes.
yeah, lovely, lovely.
And talking about the campfire, I think one last thing that I wanted to talk with you was about community building, because I think this is one of the massive thing that we can do for educators, and is to create those intentional communities that are there to support them in their process. Right now, I'm running a training that is called the Learning Expedition with about 70 people from different parts of the world, and one of the things that they're more grateful for is just having a space to share with people that are as motivated as they are to improve education. And I wanted to know about your experience doing this, because there's also lots of challenges, particularly we are so, I think I was going to say time, that we are lack of time, but I will say it's prioritizing. I think we are so used to a situation where the concept of success is that you don't need anyone, that you have enough money and resources, that you are completely independent from the rest of the world. Then at some point we become pretty isolated and lonely, and things are not working out. But then it's a big change of mind to say, I need to invest on building community or in being part of an existing community. And that means, because I have all these questions of people, people are not engaging as much as I expected, or things like that. And then the question comes back, what have you done so far to make this community possible? It's like, I'm just waiting for things to happen. It's like, well, that's not exactly building a community. So I wanted to hear your experiences. I just shared some of mine, which are challenges in the process, but lots of learnings.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that those human connections, like that's the fabric of of life, and that how we can support each other, how we can learn from each other, how we can inspire each other, and how we can feel connected, and that other people are on the same journey with us, and that there are people, what my communities love, or the communities that I'm fortunate enough to help facilitate or build, or whatever you want to call it, just be part of. They build themselves ultimately when you find a crew who really resonate with the journeys that each each of them are on. But it doesn't really. I think that in my world, there's bush kinder and nature kinder and forest school and all these different sort of pedagogies that kind of come together. But ultimately, we're and your communities as well in that evolving education, like, we're all on the same bus. We're all on the same mission to help children grow and thrive. And I think when you find, the bus, I mean, we might not be all on the same buses, we're all going in the same direction, because that's what we want. The mission that we want is to help children grow and thrive. And so, when you find a bus that, this is, not a nature analogy, but when you find a community that is, that you really resonate with, it can just enrich your teaching and your life so beautifully. And I know that through, I've been running my face-to-face conference, which is it's basically a teacher camp, a school camp for teachers. And so they get to go and drink wine around the campfire, and next time we'll eat potatoes and with faces on them and things like that. And then we do a lot of outdoor learning and nature play and educate, that sort of stuff as well. But the community that comes together is just so rich in the support of each other. And whether you're, an educator who doesn't take their kids outside, but you really want to, or whether you're at the other end of this sort of continuum where, you're mentoring others to take their children outdoors more often and help them do that. everybody fits in this community because we all have that vision and that mission that we're all on, is to help children grow and thrive. And I think, you know, for me and my communities that are around me, it's so, yeah, it's so rich. And you become, like, you know, some of these people are my very best friends. And if I don't know curriculum or a particular curriculum, or I'm not sure sort of how to link something, I can just get on the phone or Zoom or whatever and ring them, because they're part of my crew, I guess, you know, whatever you want to call them. But the ones that keep coming back to conference every year, they're like my groupies. You know, they kind of, they're not my groupies, but they're conference groupies. But they connect with each other and they continue that connection. And so Jo, who I was talking about in her school that does deep listening, like, brought Sally from conference on to help them in their curriculum planning and their, you know, their special needs, to help the special needs kids, you know, kids with special needs, and just such a beautiful connection. And so that community, sometimes it finds you, but you do have to actually step out of your comfort zone sometimes and go to these, you know, or join in with these experiences, or reach out to someone and say, hey, I love what you're doing, you know, which is what you did with me. And I was very honoured, a bit scared, but, you know, and that's, you know, I'm allowing myself to do that too. So I could reach out to all of these wonderful people in the world and say, hey, I've got this, I'm really passionate about the place where stories and nature meet. Can you help me? Share what you're doing. And then you share that with everybody else. And then, you know, then we help kids. And ultimately, you know, we help each other grow in this, playing in this space. So it's just that community and those deep relationships that form from being part of that is really special.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the things that keeps motivating me to be working in education, is the amazing people that I keep finding along the way, that is just with this massive heart. It's like, yes, I mean, this is a space where I want to put all my energies and face all the challenges that might come, because I know that we're all together in this, and that there's a lot of people that rely for help, for support, which I think, and you mentioned something very, very important, and is to ask for help.
Yes.
That's something that somehow, I mean, we are very afraid of doing, because it sounds vulnerability, and people might think, why do you ask me? Or oh, I should be looking for that on my own. But actually, asking for help is one of the most powerful things that we can do to build a meaningful connection. Yeah. It shows that we value the other persons, that we are willing to learn from them, and our openness to listen. So it shows a lot of things with something as simple as that. And most people, when asked for support and help, say yes. And I mean, obviously within their capabilities and so on, but most people are willing to give it a try.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I think this is a good take-home message for anyone watching us now or later, to go and ask for help, to any suggestions to anyone that you want to learn from, because we're all in this boat together, and that can be an amazing way to start that friendship and connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And you know, we're like your beautiful program that you're on, the learning expedition. We're all on that. We're all evolving, and we're all growing. And if my particular piece of the puzzle is nature and outdoor learning, and yours is something completely different, it doesn't matter. It's that it's that community, and knowing that we're on the same on the same mission to help kids grow and thrive, and help the planet. Then that ultimately, in my case particularly as well, helps the planet, and helps the health of the planet. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you very much, Tania. It's been amazing to talk with you and connect all the way from the other side of the Pacific. Yes. I think we're both talking at least the same ocean. Yes, always we look at the map in one way, and it seems, oh, I need to go through the Atlantic, and then no, there's another way for this side. Anyway, great to speak with you again, and looking forward to find other ways to keep connecting and building this global network of education change makers.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. Thank you so much for letting me just talk about something I'm so passionate about. So, and thank you for everyone for watching and listening. I really, appreciate it. Hope you love my little book too, if you see it. Yeah, I'll see you outside, I always say.
Yeah, looking forward to see the book. Please share the link in your bio or in the comments so that people can know about it.
Thank you. Thanks, David.
Bye-bye for
Bye.
now.
See ya.